Hello, my friend. Welcome. This is another episode of the Back to Me podcast, and I think you're really going to enjoy today. I really enjoyed talking with Petra Brunnbauer and about her blog and her journey. And her blog is called Jōrni, so even better, everything ties together. And we're talking about energy and not staying in a place of being unwell and making a choice to be well. So have a listen. Let me know what you think. Share with your friends, and I will talk to you soon. Hi, my friends. Welcome. This is the Back to Me podcast, and this is Heather, and I am super excited that you're here. You are going to hear some tips and some tricks and some ideas to help you live your happiest and healthiest self. I call it Back to Me because when you are taking care of yourself, back to me, then you can take better care of others, and we can all make the world a better place. This is Wellness Your Way, and I am super happy that you're here. Hello, my friend. How are you? I hope you're having an outstanding day. This is Heather. This is another episode of the Back to Me podcast. Yay, cheering. Today, I am talking with Petra Brunnbauer from Jōrni Wellbeing Podcast. I like the journey. I like the journey into well-being idea. I think that's brilliant because it's never instant, is it?
No.
Thank you so much.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately. Thank you for joining me, Petra. It's so great to talk with you. The first question I always ask people, because this is always something that just piques my curiosity, is it's like a beginning story. How did you become the Jōrni Wellbeing person? What brought you here?
I love that
I see you laughing. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Let's try and pack 20 years into this really quickly so that your viewers can get an idea.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think like most people who come into the well-being field or who end up doing coaching or are practitioners, there's something that happened that usually brings us to what we decide to do. And that's the case also here. So I struggled a lot with mental health when I was in my teens. We moved from Germany to Canada, which was not an easy thing at the time. So I kind of got thrown for a loop there and didn't have the tools really to help myself. The mental health system was difficult, or should we say not very existent at that time. That was in the sort of later 90s. So there wasn't much for well-being or wellness that was being offered. And so there were a lot of things that kind of made me already question at that time, how could I help myself? And that only deepened over the next, I would say even decade. I experienced a few burnouts through work. I kind of just soldiered on through those. There wasn't many tools available for that either that I knew of.
That's what we did then, right?
Yeah, you just suck it up and you get on with it. So people could tell that I wasn't doing well, but I mean, there wasn't anything that was being offered, or the internet also wasn't as prevalent as it is today. So access for many courses or things like we have now, especially after COVID, didn't really exist back then. So it was the library, or if you knew someone locally that was putting on something. And through all of that, I kept looking, I kept trying out different things. I tried yoga, I tried meditation. I found so many different modalities, crystals, color healing, acupuncture, you name it. I've probably done it.
We've had that in common for sure. I've done pretty much anything. Is there anything I haven't tried yet? Just let me know, because I'll try that too.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of kept track of that. I journaled and I tracked what I thought would help and the things that didn't help. There was many things that I tried that were not impactful at all. And so when I came to 2018, I had a very bad year in 2018, and a lot of people in my family passed away. I lost my best friend. He died from a heart attack at 39. So a lot of unexpected things happened that year. And by the end of 2018, I was so drained. I I almost felt like I wasn't myself anymore and I didn't know how to come back to myself. And that was the kickoff for the journey was there has to be a way to help people. There has to be a better way of living, a better way of being myself and getting that spark back that I know I had. And that's where the idea for the journey came from. Now, this evolved obviously since 2018, and you can throw chronic pain into the mix. I broke my foot in 2020, and the
Oh
whole chronic
no.
pain journey came from there. So, there's a lot of things that the universe put me to the test and was like, find solutions for this and pass them on. So,
Right.
yeah,
That's
but
actually, I think a lot of healers come that way. It's like, wow, this was hard. And hopefully people don't have to come the long way around. Hopefully we can help them, avoid some of these things. And chronic pain, I didn't know that. I don't think I realized that you had broken your foot. I broke my wrist in December. Um,
oh,
but I'm not going down the chronic pain route. I'm I'm gonna stay in the light. Yay. Yay,
that's a
thank you,
good
hand.
plan.
You're awesome.
Yes.
And so the things that you found that didn't work, I think that's interesting. Do you think that it's like almost like each person needs their own formula? I mean, like you and I have both tried a whole lot of things, and I do find that some stuff works for me for some things, and some stuff doesn't work for me, but other people swear by it. And I wonder if you find the same thing, that it's just like it's almost like an individual thing, what will work, and I guess it depends a bit on what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think it almost doesn't really matter what's happening. I think whether it's stress, burnout, anxiety, depression, chronic pain, like you name any of those things. And I think there is maybe a basic kind of we need to look deeper than physical or surface symptoms going on. That I would say is maybe the same for everyone. But
Mhm.
what comes after that, I think is very individual. And it can depend on the type of illness, the type of injury, the type of emotions, whatever you're experiencing, maybe even what you experienced a long time ago in childhood. And that will affect people differently as well. So I think once we come to the realization that we need to dig deeper, this isn't going to be one of the I'll just pop a Tylenol and I'll move on kind of thing. So when you come to that realization, you're like, there's more going on and I should investigate. And then this door opens up for the many things that you've tried, that I've tried, where then we come to something that might help. And for me, it was a combination of things. Like, there's not really one thing that I look back to and say, this was the magic thing that fixed everything, but the combination of different kind of approaches. And I would say that the biggest shift probably came when I started understanding energy work and
Mm.
understanding that we are all energetic beings. We are electrical beings. We're electromagnetic beings. We have all this energy that we are made of. And if we don't address that energetic component of us, as well as everything else, there seems to be a bit of stagnation. And oftentimes we can't get to the root cause. So when I started realizing that, that was a big step forward. So I do think that probably the energy body is involved in many, many things that are going on for people. So,
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that, and science is, people used to think it was crazy. Oh, we're all energy. It's like, oh, you're just talking crazy. But now science has proven it. Like they can actually
yeah,
measure your electrical signal. As they say 6 feet from your body, but really that's just as far as their instruments can measure so
yeah.
far. So it's probably actually bigger, right? So, but it is true. And I think that, like I'm trying to picture how this, because I think sometimes like we were talking about, your life experience has created these stories within you of how life passes and how life should be. And that is an energetic mm, matrix, almost framework. So I have many concepts flying through my head right now. like trying to reprogram software, and those are just bits and bytes, and that's electric. So because I think about, it is true. When I broke my wrist, people were saying, well, weren't you in pain? And I was like, well, yeah, but I decided not to be. So yeah, it hurt, but that was where I was coming from, where someone who is really averse to pain or worried about pain or anxious about pain, it's going to make it worse almost. Do you think that chronic pain, and I don't know if this is a thing, like chronic pain comes from, you think it's going to be chronic? What do you find? Because you've got it. Are you experiencing it now with your foot?
I am still, yeah.
Do you have any, it may not be even a thing for everyone, but how do you feel? Do you feel like that's some kind of energy that's stuck, or?
Yeah. So from what I've learned over the years with this, I think there's a huge component of emotional. So I think there's an emotional component to pain. And I think from what I have found is that it's fear. And those are also being taught in some of the modalities, like pain reprocessing therapy, for example, is a really interesting one. And these emotional components, so if you're a fearful person, and if you're very anxious all the time, or you worry a lot all the time, and you're already in that kind of mindset, and I was actually back in 2020 when I broke my foot, I was exactly in that kind of mindset.
I think a lot of people were.
Everything shut down, it was
right.
It was a very strange world, and in that fear-based thinking, I broke my foot, and so I think from what I've learned, the brain then learns to interpret the pain signals, everything as pain signals. So not just what's actually coming from your foot, but because there's such a state of feeling unsafe and fear, that everything then gets interpreted as pain. And so I would almost say that people who experience chronic pain, and maybe not all chronic pain, but definitely some forms of chronic pain, that the brain is misinterpreting a lot of those signals. And I do think that's true for myself as well, which is a lot of these approaches that retrain the brain are being really helpful for my foot. And that's not to say that it's all in your head and you're making it up, but it's coming from your head as misinterpreted things. So when we can reestablish a sense of safety, and we can reestablish for the brain that it doesn't need to protect us all the time with these danger signals, I think that's when we can make a lot of progress with chronic pain. And so to your question, yeah, I do think, I think there is an emotional component, there's an energy component from what I've seen. I mean, there are different kinds of pain. You have pain from, if you have cancer, that's a whole thing all in itself. And of course, then you have a physical cause. But a lot of chronic pain that people experience, it's not actually like a physiological pain. It's more a neuroplastic pain, which is coming from the brain. So there's something to say about that. And I do think we can retrain the brain to work on those pain signals. And if you are a person who is maybe not as inclined to worry as much, or isn't inclined to overthink and really dig in and stay obsessed almost with things, and then maybe you're not as predisposed to chronic pain. But those are things we usually don't know when we get injured. When something happens.
And it's not like you plan it.
No.
I'm going to injure myself just to test to see if I'm a chronic pain person.
Yeah.
No. That's the wrong reason to do it. And it's interesting because the brain, I had when I studied acupuncture, and I can remember the doctor who was teaching it. He was a doctor, but I think he secretly did a lot of energy type stuff. And he said one day, pain doesn't exist except in the brain. And I'm like thinking, what is he talking about? But I mean, his point was, something happens to you, like a sensation in your body, and the nerves tell your brain something is going on, and your brain decides what the interpretation is. So it is a huge thing that your brain decides whether it's pain or not. And we think that we're at the whim of our brains. we can learn how to tell it to be the boss, right, of the brain. The brain thinks it's in charge all the time. And I know one of the side effects of my, and all I did was break my wrist, all I did. And I had surgery. And when I had the cast off, everything, because I'd had the cast on for so long and the sensory feedback was cut off for my hand, it's oversensitized now.
Yeah.
Things that are smooth feel rough. And I thought, that's very strange. But my awesome physiotherapist tells me it's not unusual. So your brain, it just needs time to relearn that it's okay. You're fine. You're fine. You're okay.
Yeah.
You're okay. And when he told me that pain was in the brain, that's probably when I started going, okay, well, then I can decide. Right.
Yeah.
But for me, I can only decide if I'm maintaining my equilibrium, my state of, enough sleep, enough nutrition, all of the things, and a good mindset, because it's easy to be thrown off. And 2020 did it, I can imagine like how stressed everybody is, and you hurt yourself and you're like, oh my God. So, but I know we were talking about this earlier. I know one really good thing, and is it one of the things that you use a lot, is tapping?
Yeah. It's one of the things that I've really come to actually use for almost everything, for pain, for anxiety, for stress, and just in general to keep myself aligned. I mean, you can tap on, I would say, pretty much anything that's coming up for you during the day, or even things that are more in the past. If it's trauma that you've experienced, you can tap on anything. And the nice thing is that you don't need to re-traumatize yourself to be tapping on something. So if there's things that I'm working with from my past, my brain will make a symbol for it, or it'll make a color for it. So if I say, this trauma, my brain will make it like a black cloud, or it'll make some kind of symbol for it. And I can tap on that. I don't actually need to relive what happened. I don't need to rethink about everything that happened. I can just tap on what my brain is bringing up, that trauma is sort of symbolized for me. So that's why I really like tapping, and it works very quickly in my personal experience. And that's one of the things that I found with a lot of other modalities. It took a really long time. Talk therapy is probably one of those examples. I think I was in therapy for almost a decade. And so some things can take a really long time. Whereas I found that tapping is actually quite efficient. So if I have a headache and I start tapping, usually, within 5-10 minutes, it starts to go away. So 1 round, 2 rounds of tapping, and it helps. So there's something to be said also that when we find something that helps and the body recognizes that as something helpful, that change can be quite quick, and that what we're affecting can be quite quick. So there are modalities that can do that if it's right for you, and if it's the right situation and your body thinks it's a good thing. But yeah, for me, tapping is one of those things that has worked really, really well.
Right. I remember I actually used hypnotherapy, because I felt that at the time, I felt like talk therapy was just like you were mentioning, reliving over and over and over and picking it to pieces. I was like, I don't want to do that. I just want to it's not a pill. It's not like I wanted a pill and I wanted it gone instantly. I knew that it was like a program that I didn't want to keep playing. So I used hypnotherapy because I hadn't heard of tapping at that point. And I feel like it's the same way. If you get the right practitioner, they can just go in. They're not doing anything to you. You're doing it to yourself. Just let me say that. But they go in, you're going in and saying, okay, this is this thing, and let's just reframe it or put a box around it or change it or something, and just release whatever that energy is of that thing. And things like that there is a place for talk therapy for some people who need to process that way, but I just was impatient. I'm like, I don't want to talk about it for 10 years. I just want to get on with it. And tapping I found later, which I think is amazing. And if people don't know what tapping is it just called tapping?
It's actually called, well, the first part of it was TFT, so thought field therapy, that came earlier. And then that was evolved by different people into emotional freedom technique, which is EFT, which is tapping now. But
Right. EFT.
it's been around forever. I mean, if you look at acupuncture, like you talked before, right? Acupuncture uses many of those same points, just the energy points in the body, and so does acupressure and various other modalities. So I think it has a name, but those points have been used for millennia, I would say, to help balance our energy and release stuck energy and help our body heal. So, yeah, it's been around for a long
The
time.
Chinese meridians have been around a long time.
Yeah.
They studied it a long time. They practiced it, they figured it out. And the doctor taught me acupuncture, even though it was medical acupuncture, where we were talking about the physical structures. It was really the energy we were affecting, and we kind of knew that. And I have very limited experience with tapping, but when I have used it, I thought it was amazing. I used it when I was stressing at one point, and I actually went on YouTube and just found a video. So I was like, yeah, it could work. You could watch a video and learn how to do it. Pardon me. And do you find that you have one-on-one clients? Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, for the
And
tapping also, yeah.
yeah, for the tap. And do you find that a lot, like, tapping helps almost everyone? Like, are there people who don't respond to tapping?
There are some people that don't respond to tapping that I have heard of. I have not personally worked with anyone that's happened with, but in the training, that has been said that there are some people that tapping might not work for. And I think it's similar maybe also to hypnosis. It doesn't work for everyone. We're
Right.
working with the subconscious, right? So there has to be a level of safety that people feel when we're talking about that, when we're addressing the subconscious. There has to be a level of willingness to actually let the subconscious work on that. So if a person has decided that they're unwilling or unable at that point to let that happen, possibly just like with hypnosis, you
Right.
might not get the best results. So,
Right.
but I think for everyone that I have worked with anyways, I've not come across that. So,
Well, I
yeah.
guess if people are coming to you for assistance, at some level, they do want something different and they want something to change. And I mean, it's somewhat unrelated, but I can remember, because I've been a personal trainer for a long time, like 19 years or something. And when people come to exercise, I can tell who actually wants to exercise and who's just there because they feel like they have to be.
Yeah,
Right?
they made a New Year's resolution and they
Yeah.
have to exercise.
And they're gone quickly.
Yeah,
They don't want to work out. I said, well, don't do it if you don't want to do
yeah.
it. Come on, you guys, save some time and go do something more fun that's still good for you. I'm curious, do you think that you could show a quick little tapping demo for our friends
Yeah,
out there in podcast
yeah,
land?
for
Yeah.
sure. So, as you said, everyone can go on YouTube and they can find the basic tapping sequence. Where I think it really helps to work with a practitioner
Mhm.
is when you are trying to address some things that, because there's a lot more to tapping than just the basic sequence that they teach you on YouTube. So, when you're working with a practitioner, you can actually address the different issues from different angles. And we have a lot of different techniques that we bring into EFT. So, that's where I would suggest everyone can go and learn this. You can use this anytime. It's perfect for when you have a panic attack or you're feeling really anxious or anything that comes up for you. By all means, go ahead, start tapping, right? It's really helpful. But if you're actually wanting to work with someone and you want some different techniques brought in, then I would say, a practitioner is really, really handy for that. So the basic sequence starts here on the side of the hand. And
Does it matter which hand?
no, and this is the good thing about tapping. You can tap with either hand. You can tap with one finger, two fingers, all of the fingers, however you want. There are also, I've heard it said that you can also tap in your energy field. So if it's too painful or something to actually, touch your skin or touch certain spots, because of this electromagnetic field that we have around us, you could also just tap in the field and it will have that same impact. And you can do one side, two sides, whatever feels good for you. So in that sense, tapping is really simple and easy to do. Or if you, for example, you have a broken wrist and you can't tap with that hand, no
Right.
problem. So,
Thank goodness.
you just use the other hand. So no worries.
It's coming back, but it still doesn't do everything.
Yeah. So you can just use the other hand. And again, if there's painful points, then just tap in the field and that's
Wow.
fine too. So
Cool.
we start on the side of the hand here and we actually there's kind of this fleshy part here. And I like to tap with 2 fingers, but you can tap however you like to. And we just start tapping, or you can use 4 fingers, however you want on the side of your hand here.
So it's for people watching the podcast, it's like the pinky side. Yeah.
Yeah, the fleshy part that runs down. So above your wrist, but below the pinky, there's kind of a fleshy bit in there. And you can feel that as you're running your fingers
That's the
down.
hypothenar eminence from my massage therapy. I still
There you
never
go.
know my anatomy.
That's where you want to tap. So I'll put it in layman's terms. So between the bottom of your pinky and the top of your wrist in there. So we start tapping on here. And at this point, we're setting out with a sentence. So depending on what it is that's happening for you and me, we can just tap on stress, for example, for now, because it's a pretty common thing, but you can tap on anything. And you want to structure the sentence so that you are addressing whatever you're tapping on. So you want to say, even though I am stressed, so we're going to use stress for an example, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And that's your guiding sentence. That's the setup sentence. If you feel like you don't love yourself, if you're not at that point, you can also say, I acknowledge that I have this emotion, or I'm open to the possibility of loving myself one day. But generally, we use I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
You don't try to fake it. You don't say it even.
Your subconscious knows when you're trying to say something that's not true. So at that point, it probably won't be very effective. So you might as well just be really honest about how you feel about this. And if you're like, I don't actually feel like I love myself, then we just adjust that sentence and that's not a problem. But your subconscious knows. So yeah, this is a good place to be honest with yourself on this.
Right? Yeah. You yourself knows when you're not telling the truth.
That's the thing, right? So that's where you can adjust that a little bit. But I have not worked with anyone who couldn't find a sentence that worked for them. So at some point we come to something that feels right for them, whether that's just open to a possibility or open to something changing, and that works as well. But for the example, we can use our regular sentence. And as we tap on this spot on the side of the hand here, we would repeat that sentence 3 times. So you would just say, even though I am stressed, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And we do that 3 times. Even though I am stressed, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I am stressed, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. So from here, we're going to go to the inside of the eyebrows. So kind of where the top of your nose is there, between there. And again, you can tap one side, both sides, however you're feeling that works for you.
Don't poke too hard.
Yeah, and also, again, you can tap in the field, right? So instead of poking your eye, if you can't reach there, just tap the field in front of it too. That's okay. And when we're going through these points now, we're going to repeat just the core of what it is that we're tapping on. So here we're going to just tap on stress, and we're going to say stress, and then we're going to tap about 5 to 7 times. And then we're going to come sort of to the outside here of the eye. So just below where the eyebrow curves down in the side of the eye here, we're going to tap here, and we're going to say stress. And then we're going to come under the eye. So on the orbital bone here, we're going to tap there. And again, if you have glasses or it's difficult to reach, just tap in the field. Your body knows what you were trying to do. So, and then you can just say stress. And then we're going to tap under the nose and above your lip here in that little divot. And we're going to say stress. And then we're going to just go below the lip and the divot of the chin here and say stress. And from there, we come to the collarbone. And if you can't see me in the video, so your collarbones kind of come together where your breastplate is in the front of the body. And where those two come together, there's two little divots, soft spots underneath there. And those are the spots that we want to tap on. So you can start tapping on those, and you can make little beaks with your fingers, or you can tap in the field, whatever feels good. And you're going to repeat that same core piece, stress. And from here, we're going to go to a little bit more difficult point. So on the side of your body, just below your armpit, for women, kind of where your bra strap would sit, exactly there, we're going to tap there. And this can be pretty sore. So again, if you want to massage or tap in the field, you can do that. And we'll say stress as we tap here on the side. And then we're going to come to the top of the head. And there's actually a ton of energy points on the head. So you know those massagers that they sell in the TV commercials? So you can kind of give yourself a nice little head tap all around and make sure you hit those points. And there you would say stress again. And so once that is complete, we usually do a nice breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And then I would ask you on a scale from 1 to 10 where your problem is. So, if your stress level at first when you came to see me was an 8, and then now we would reassess and see if that's moved at all. And usually by the first round, it will come down. So it might be like a 5 or 6 at that point. And then we repeat those tapping rounds 2 more times. We can also use, different words or different sentences. I usually pick those out as I'm talking with the client before we do the tapping. But if you're just doing this by yourself, tap on whatever feels good. So, if you have major work stress, and you can also tap on work or whatever it is that's involved with what you're wanting to tap on.
Right.
And after each round, kind of take a breath, reassess where you're at. And usually we want to get to 0 with the tapping. So it doesn't always happen in one session, but usually we get it pretty close to 0. So if you're having stress, pain, anxiety, and you just keep doing the tapping rounds, usually after 2 or 3 rounds, we'll see a really big decrease in what the level was to start with. And if you remember nothing else, you can also just keep tapping on the side of your hand. So if the points completely escape you, you're having a panic attack or something is happening or a major wave of pain, just start tapping the side of your hand and just repeat your sentence. So that's kind of the emergency. If you just can't remember anything else, just tap the side of your hand and argue that.
Point, right?
Yeah.
I was just like, I wonder if you could use it for procrastination. Even though I'm thinking of all the things that, procrastination causes people stress. They just don't realize they could reduce their stress by not procrastinating. There's something else going on in there, right?
Yeah, you could ask your subconscious why that feels safe to procrastinate and what that is helping you establish. So if you go into hypnotherapy, right, you could definitely start communicating with your subconscious, and you could just ask it very gently, what is it that you're protecting me from by procrastinating? What is it that is helping me by procrastinating? Maybe I don't need those things anymore. And maybe I can let go of these patterns and replace them with something that's more productive for who I am now. So your subconscious knows all of that and it knows why you're doing that. So
it's the background software that's running that we don't really realize what's going on there. Why did I do that? Well, you've got this app running in the background, right? You don't have your brain doesn't come up and say, hey, there's some apps here that are out of date. Should we update them? You've got to figure that out yourself.
You have to find them. Yeah. And I think your subconscious works really well with sort of yes or no. Like the computer does it in 0s and 1s, right? And so I think we're wired almost identical in the fact that we work best with yes and no for the subconscious. So asking, is there something I am benefiting from by procrastinating, and you can kind of sense for a yes or a no. Does this have to do with my work? Does this have to do with my childhood? Does this have to do with my family? You could ask a whole bunch of different questions to kind of get to the root of
And I think
why things are
sometimes,
happening.
like it's some if you look at your habits, I think at some point you might recognize, oh, I think it's this. Maybe I'll ask, is it this? Because you probably at some level know, right? I feel like if
Yeah,
you
exactly.
if you uh, examine the habits that you have. Now, you also have a podcast.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
you do. The Jōrni Podcast. And is that on all the podcast places?
Yes, it's everywhere that I think you can be. So we have Spotify, Apple, Buzzsprout, our website. You can find it everywhere, and it's an extension of what happened in 2018. And I wanted to showcase as many modalities as I could, so that people wouldn't lose hope, that they would really listen to the podcast and say, "Oh, wow, I've never heard of that before. I should try that because I've never even tried that before." And maybe they find something for their mental health challenges, for their chronic pain, for anything that's going on. And so the podcast kind of explores all of these different
Right.
modalities.
And I love that we have those resources now, to you don't have to ask, your next door neighbor. You can go looking and listen to those conversations about people's experiences and what they've
Yeah.
tried. And there's so much out there to help people who aren't where they aren't feeling their greatest, right? And there's so much out there for us. We don't have to suffer needlessly, perhaps.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the other day, people walk around saying the Buddha says life is suffering. Actually, the Buddha didn't say that you had to suffer. It's like he didn't say you had to suffer. He just said that, there's certain things that will make you suffer. And so you can choose. You can't avoid things happening, but you can choose whether to suffer or not. And I guess they can find all about you, your podcast, your programs, how to get a hold of you and learn more of the awesome things that you do on your website, which is going to be in the show notes. But what is it?
Yeah, it's just The Jōrni, and Jōrni is Jorni. So thejorni.com, really simple. And we have everything listed on there, that podcast, blog, the summits we do, programs that we're offering. So you can check on there, and everything will be updated on there whenever you come and look for what we offer.
Amazing. Yes, I definitely highly recommend that. At the very least, because I'm going to go listen to your podcast because I'm always looking for new things to try. I'm like, new modalities. Yeah, let's try it. So,
Yeah.
I love having all of these resources available. It's so, so helpful because when you're feeling down, you want to feel good again. And sometimes you don't know where to turn. So I like being able to have many resources for people to turn to.
Yeah.
Before we head off, though, I always give my guests the final word or words, you can have more than one, of wisdom to share with the audience.
This is a good one. Now you're making me think.
Just go with your instinct.
Yeah. And that's exactly actually what I was going to say, is follow your intuition. I think if you feel like something is not quite right, if you feel like what you're doing is not quite right, if you feel like who you are being is not quite right, then it's time to change. And so listen to your intuition and really follow that and let that guide you. Very often we think that's woo woo, or we don't trust our gut, or we're taught to think with our heads and logically. But in most cases, when it involves stress, burnout, chronic pain, anxiety, any of those things, if we actually had listened to ourselves a long time ago, we probably would have not even headed down that path, as was the case for me with the burnout and all those things. So
Right.
listen to your intuition and let that guide you to where you need to go. I think that's
Yeah,
probably the nugget. Yep.
that's awesome. And it's so true. Like, if you can just trust your inner knowing, because part of you knows. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much, Petra. It was so amazing talking with you today. Thank you for sharing tapping. I love it. I love all
Yeah.
these things. I can't help myself.
Yeah. Well, they
I
are
hope,
amazing and they're
yeah,
available for anyone. And
right.
thank you for having me here today and giving me this opportunity to talk about this and the platform to share this on. I really, truly appreciate it. And I appreciate you. And I am so glad that we met. So,
Yes.
journey on from here. But thank you so, so much for having me on today, Heather. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Petra. Friends in podcast land, you probably know someone who needs this. So send it over to them. We'll see you next time. Hi, my friend. Thanks so much for listening to this entire podcast. If you found it useful and you're like me and you like helping others, please feel free to share this. Give it a like, give it a comment. If you found something useful in it, there's a chance that someone else will find something useful as well. Also, if you have any questions at all, I can absolutely help and I would love to help. You can email me at heather@prosperityflowcoaching.com. If you want more of this awesome content, you can follow me on Instagram, Heather Stewart Coaching. You can follow me on Facebook, Prosperity Flow Coaching. And I have a personal request. I want to help as many people as I can with these podcasts. And if you could give me a review, hopefully a good one, if you could share, if you could send this out into the world, I would truly appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing day. And I hope that you find your way to wellness by getting back to me. Take care, my friend.